Friends, the revolution has begun, has it not? And I want to say thank you so much to so many great patriotic people, particularly the women of Epping Forest who've started a process. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about Nigel Farage's policies. I'm also going to talk to you about what people are doing on the streets. And I'm also going to talk to you about more and more councils attempting to shut those migrant hotels. I will tell you that, like every single scandal that has ever taken place in Britain, the politicians have spectacularly failed, and we, the British people, have stepped in to save the country. That, I believe, is something that all of us should be proud of. But when I say this revolution has started, I think it's only just starting, and of course we need to do so much more to get to the point where we defeat the establishment and take back control of our country. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker in a bit of a jubilant mood. Please do subscribe, also hit the bell notification icon, and you can donate to the Patriot Fund if you want to help support this revolution. Well, where to start? I've always said that the work that Tommy Robinson and others have done, Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, all of those have paved the way for what is now starting to come. Today, the speech at Oxford Airport by Nigel Farage, I think, came up with some positive things. The only one complaint I would make is this. I think we have to retrospectively change the law. And we have to say that anyone who ever came to the country on a small boat, even if they've now been granted right to remain, even if they've now been granted British citizenship, need to go home. The reason I say that is really very simple, because what's going to happen is the government will open the floodgates now as much as they can, because we all know that what Starmer and others are attempting to do is make sure the British population is so diluted that by the time of any future elections, we won't be able to do anything about it. Now, that just can't happen by the next election. They're not going to give the vote to foreigners by then, though they may try. And so I think we have to worry about what we do after the next election. And for me, it's any small boat arrivals and you need to go. I think the idea to immediately detain people and send them back is brilliant. But I saw Dr. S. Chelan, and by the way, Dr. Chelan has never published his first name on any document that I've been able to find, but he is a professor of law and he works for 33 Bedford Row as a barrister. He describes himself as a queer refugee, advocate, proud Tamil, he, him, well, all the usual sort of things. But he said something that I think we're going to see more and more and more. So he said that the courts would overrule Nigel Farage's legislation. Get that? Yes, I've been banging on this channel for a long time about the way that Parliament ought to be supreme, and the creation of a Supreme Court was a secret ticking bomb that Tony Blair put under our Constitution, so that at some point, when laws were passed to defend and protect this country, the Supreme Court would overrule it and claim to be the supreme body of the United Kingdom. For those of you who are ever so slightly confused by any of this, I'll give you an easy piece of law education. What used to happen was the highest court in the land was the law lords. And what the law lords used to do, very simply, was this. When people believed the government were not obeying Parliament, i.e. not obeying the law lords would step in and rule. It was a function of Parliament, and Parliament was sovereign. Well, of course, part of the denigration of parliamentary sovereignty was to take away this power and to create a Supreme Court. What Dr. Chelan said should left you chilling, if that's a word, should left you chilling, put a chill down your spine. And it's this. He says that in English common law, torture has always been prohibited, and that is true. But remember what they're attempting to do. They're not attempting to enforce British or English human rights on the British. They're attempting to get the United Kingdom government to enforce human rights around the world by bringing people to Britain. Do you see the difference? Yes, of course, torture has always been prohibited in English common law. Yes, of course, we shouldn't allow that. But what we're talking about is whether somebody who is a victim in Uganda automatically has the right to come to Britain as a result of that. And it's the same, of course, with the Afghan resettlement scheme. If those people are in danger in Afghanistan, then they suddenly have a right to move to the United Kingdom. What we have to say to ourselves is this. A strong United Kingdom, a strong United States of America, a strong Anglosphere will make problems in the rest of the world less likely. If we go by this plan, which what we do is we make Britain a third world country, then those third world dictators that we've previously opposed will be more able to inflict their evil, which of course Dr. Chalan knows because he is on the side of the dictator. He's on the side of the third world. He's on the side of the heathen horde, if you want to call them that, who want to enter the United Kingdom. But what do we have to do next? Well, I've always had a bit of a debate about this in terms of uniting the right. I think what we should say is whoever is in government, we will put them under equal pressure. I don't believe in this whole hero worship thing. Oh, are you with Rupert Lowe or are you with Nigel Farage? Are you with this person or are you with that person? I don't believe in any of that. I say that we wouldn't hero worship any future Prime Minister. Whoever they are, we would continue to force them. But I want to say one thing. I can't encourage criminal damage. So I'll say this. I believe that we should put red crosses on all the mini roundabouts in the United Kingdom. We should change the law and say that on every single street we should have the Union flag. Also, what about in schools, the oath of allegiance, like in the United States of America? It's about time we said we value our country, we value our heritage. Now, when Britain was British, of course, we didn't have to go on about valuing our heritage. We didn't have to stand up for the rights of indigenous peoples of Britain. And by the way, I think Britain should register with the UN segment on indigenous peoples to protect our own culture. Yes, well, look, we are being invaded. We are the victim of settlers. What is the difference between us and Native Americans? What is the difference between us and the Aborigines of Australia? We are the Aborigines of the United Kingdom and we should have our indigenous rights accepted. Even if they're going to have tribal areas, can we have our own tribal areas where people who are British are allowed in only? Can you imagine what The Guardian would say about that? They're absolutely delighted when there are Pakistani Muslim only areas, but imagine white Christian only areas. That would send them bananas. I wouldn't personally move to one, but I believe that it should be an option if that's the world we're going to go down. Of course, what I would rather is a British Britain where we don't have to say salute the flag because you just do it anyway, where we don't have to say respect the Constitution because you just do it anyway, where we don't say you have to speak English because that's the only language you can speak apart from those people interested in heritage with things like Ulster Scots and Gaelic and Welsh. Well, I think now we are starting to change this country back. I think we're going to have a lot more than just stopping people at the border and turning them away. I think we are going to have many more mass deportations. Also, I want to warn you of something which I haven't got an enormous amount of evidence about, but I certainly have seen anecdotally, the Eastern Europeans. Now, I've always said that I voted for Brexit because I believed in the rights of British people to take control of their own affairs. But I do have to say to you, I didn't have any particular problem with free movement. The reason is because I believe it is easy for a white Christian European to integrate into British society, easier than it is for an Afghan to integrate. And I came from quite an Eastern European town in Lee where people, first generation had slightly funny accents, but second generation were pretty British. The Eastern Europeans, oh, by the way, I should say, I did believe in a temporary stop on Poland and other countries. So what you do is, when all the countries of Europe are similarly wealthy, you can move around them, but you can't move around them when the countries are very poor. So I thought that would be an important thing to do. But the Eastern Europeans now are starting to leave because they believe that Britain has been invaded and they are concerned for their own safety. They do not believe, I've said this before, in a multicultural society, they believe that one culture will win, another culture will lose. And they are worried about that. I've got a friend of mine who's Moldovan, who watched the King's speech. Was it this year or the year before? I can't remember. And he watched at the end, and when the choir began singing, he said, but this choir was chosen because it had the smallest possible number of white children. That is their attitude. And we have to start thinking about that and whether we want Eastern Europeans who legitimately came to the country, who did undercut wages in things like the construction industry, but have integrated into this society, whether they should be encouraged to stay. I don't know. Certainly, they made Britain look more British because obviously second generation are all pretty much British white kids. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. The link to the Patriot Club is in the description. We're still working, by the way, on this project to end Pakistani ethnic cleansing. Small acorns, but they do grow into big trees, don't they? Until next time, goodbye.